Now, all of that is happening as a couple of pieces of evidence of serious abuse by the Israelis in Gaza continue to emerge here from the New York Times this week. The article is "Stripped, Beaten, or Vanished. Israel's treatment of Gaza detainees raises alarm." Quote, a UN office said Israel's detention and treatment of detainees might amount to torture. It estimated thousands had been detained and held in, quote, horrific conditions. Some detainees were freed wearing only diapers. Palestinian detainees from Gaza have been stripped, beaten, interrogated, and held incommunicado over the past 3 months, according to accounts by nearly a dozen of the detainees or their relatives interviewed by the New York Times. Organizations representing Palestinian prisoners and detainees gave similar accounts in a report accusing Israel of both indiscriminate detention of civilians and demeaning treatment of detainees. Israeli forces who invaded Gaza after the October 7th Hamas-led attack have detained men, women, and children by the thousands. A spokesman for the International Committee of the Red Cross, Hishma Mahana, said his organization received daily reports from families in Gaza about detained family members. The organization is working on some 4,000 cases of Palestinians from Gaza who had been vanished, nearly half believed to be detained by the Israeli military. Photos and videos taken by Israeli soldiers and Israeli journalists embedded with the military have shown Palestinians with hands bound behind their backs, sometimes blindfolded and in underwear, kneeling outdoor in winter. In one video taken at a stadium in Gaza City, dozens of males wearing only underwear are lined up or marched across the field, surrounded by Israeli soldiers. Some of the men were gray-haired, and several were young boys. Now, this was part of what happened after 9/11. The United States abused detainees in mass numbers. And these laws of wars were implemented in the wake of the Second World War to avoid exactly these kinds of abuses. You can take prisoners of war in war, but you owe them a standard of care and dignity that is clearly, woefully falling short when it comes to the Israeli detention of Palestinians. And by the way, the Israelis have been imprisoning Palestinians in the West Bank, a place that the entire world regards as them illegally occupying, for years, with no charges of any kind, simply on military detention. And when these people get out through prisoner exchanges and the like, they are so physically and psychologically destroyed that there is no question that they were subjected to torture. You just watch them. They don't know their names. They don't know where they are. They stare into space. They can't orient themselves. They walk as though they're 100 years old. It's just the truth. The truth of how the Israelis treat the Palestinians in land that the entire world recognizes as the Israelis illegally occupying it, and now the Israeli treatment of detainees in Gaza falls radically short of what the laws of war require in terms of the treatment of detainees. This is one of the things that motivated me to get into politics and write about journalism in the first place, was the abuse of detainees on a mass scale by the United States in the wake of 9/11. You cannot claim that you are a civilized country fighting for civilized values if you do not adhere to minimal standards of civilized decency, especially when it comes to helpless detainees already disarmed and in your custody. Here is a video of a kind of incident that has been happening every day in Gaza. It just so happened that a British television crew interviewed the victim, and then right when the interview was done, the Israeli military shot and tried to kill as many of the people they had just interviewed as possible. And they were having their arms in the air, waving a white flag. There were only 4 of them or 5 of them, explaining why they wanted to go to the end of the block to get their 2 relatives who had not been allowed out. The British television crew went over and interviewed them, and they explained that. And the minute the interview was done, the Israelis opened fire on these 5 unarmed people standing there with a white flag and their hands in the air, and killed one of them, while women and children just a few feet away were terrorized. Take a look. Just watch what happened.
These pictures were filmed by a cameraman working for ITV News in Gaza. As he moved forwards towards the combat zone, he noticed this group of men doing their utmost to appear non-threatening, trying to proceed with care. They wanted to reach 2 other family members and get them out of harm's way.
عند الحجة وأخويا وعنده حوالي 50 نزح أو 70.
I have my mother and brother in there with around 50 or 70 displaced people in another house. The Israelis claimed to us and told us to evacuate, but they didn't let my brother out. We want to go and try to get them out, God willing.
The interview complete, our cameraman walked away. And then this happened. The interviewee had been shot and fatally wounded. You can see them place their flag on his chest. As he was carried away, the white flag was turning red. Carry him, they've killed him, yells this youth. Then suddenly, more gunfire.
Look at that little boy there, right here. I think I can't do the graphics for a video, so just
More
watch this.
gunfire.
Just watch this scene here. There's a little boy. He is probably about, I would say, 10 to 12 years old, witnessing all of this, in the middle of having the Israelis shoot at him, seeing this person who was just shot. You watch them with their arms in the air doing absolutely nothing threatening, unarmed, having just spoken to a British television crew about what they were trying to do and get their brother. How are any of these people who are seeing this on a daily basis, while U.S. provided fighter jets fly overhead dropping bombs on them and destroying 80% of residential infrastructure in Gaza, ever going to have anything resembling a stable or normal or healthy life? Where are these 2.2 million people go, or whatever the number is left by the time the Israelis are done? How are they ever going to live in any semblance of a civilized society when you have these children who are living through the most horrific traumas imaginable? And if you want to justify the Israeli attack on Hamas, at least recognize the realities of what's going on. You can see it on video every single day, that there are innocent people and women and children who make up the vast majority of people who are being killed, and the ones not being killed are being routinely subjected to these sorts of unimaginably and indescribably traumatic experiences. Let's watch the rest of this.
They scream at a child, telling him to find cover. By this stage, the man's wife, his widow, has heard what happened. And as she rushes to the scene, she meets the party carrying away the body on a makeshift stretcher. When they're satisfied they're a safe distance away, they stop. And the mourning starts. These tragic scenes have been repeated time and time again since this war began.
This war is not producing anything good unless you're somebody who sees the world as some sort of a neocon kind of post 9/11 civilization battle, where on the one side you have the enlightened, elevated, advanced people of real value, namely white Westerners and their allies, and then on the other side you have the primitive, dangerous Muslim hordes. That was the primary neocon view after 9/11, that they tried to convince Americans that all of Israel's enemies in the region, Muslims and Arabs, were our enemies, were the enemies of the West, and therefore we should be happy when they're killed. Absent that view, that neocon, central defining neocon view, It is impossible to look at this and say that there is anything good taking place here, even from the Israeli perspective. Thanks for watching this clip from System Update, our live show that airs every Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Rumble. You can catch the full nightly shows live or view the backlog of episodes for free on our Rumble page. You can also find full episodes the morning after they air across all major podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Apple. All the information you need is linked below. We hope to see you there.